This video is brought to you by Storyblocks.
Who is your daddy and what does he do?
That's the question young celebrities are facing after the recent internet discourse about Nepo babies, the fun name given to the children of the famous and successful. Thanks to New York Magazine's extensive investigation, a bunch of young entertainers were exposed for their genetic connections to famous elders, or at least to industry insiders. While plenty of these celebs have forged real careers, arguably with help from their parents, others with seemingly no marketable skills have ended up headlining Variety's Young Hollywood issue. Nepo babies aren't exclusive to the arts either. Fallout from the feud between the families of United States men's national soccer team manager Greg Berhalter and his former international teammate and best man at his wedding, Claudio Reyna, has highlighted the extent to which youngsters with successful parents run riot in American soccer. Meanwhile, LeBron James' son, Bronny James, a promising high school player, has been hyped as an NBA prospect since he was 9. Now, I could go on, but I'll be honest, I don't get the sense that you all like sports. But maybe I'm wrong. So please let me know in the comments if we're wrong and you love sports, and if so, which sports do you love? Now, while Nepo babies have recently captivated the internet, this isn't anything new. Nepotism in entertainment, as New York Magazine notes, dates back to two of the first movie stars, Mary Pickford and Douglas Fairbanks Sr., whose son, Douglas Jr., managed to eke out a decent career despite not being as talented as his folks. Vaudeville families also became a pipeline into early Hollywood for comedians like Buster Keaton, who got to start performing with his parents at age 3. The star power of celebrity spawn sometimes extends back multiple generations. Dakota Johnson's mother is Melanie Griffith, whose own mother was Tippi Hedren. This predates modern times. The Renaissance painter Artemisia Gentileschi's dad was a painter. And don't get me started on the likes of Pieter Bruegel the Younger. Same with music. Johann Sebastian Bach's whole family was comprised of composers. And more recently, Norah Jones and Jacob Dylan both come from elite musical stock. In short, people have been helping their children succeed in their trade since as long as there have been trades. So why have the children of the rich and famous captured the zeitgeist right now? Is there something about this cultural moment that makes us so primed to hate on youngsters who inherit their parents' looks, talents, and/or connections? Let's find out in this Wisecrack edition why we hate Nepo babies. Okay, before we get into it, I want to tell you about the sponsor of today's video, Storyblocks. Now, Storyblocks is perfect for when you're in need of a quick soundbite, B-roll clip, a template, or a graphic. And anything from Storyblocks' massive library of high-quality footage or After Effects templates, songs, illustrations, and sound effects is yours to download. Now, a lot of other stock providers make licensing expensive and complicated. Storyblocks created 2 clear-cut licenses with comprehensive coverage so you can get back the time you'd spend wading through legal jargon and create with confidence. And I kid you not when I say here at Wisecrack, we really love Storyblocks. Between you and me, there was a time where we were only able to use free stock and Creative Commons footage, and we would just spend hours scouring the web to find the right thing, and it really sucked. Now we're a lot happier because we're using Storyblocks. Start making your videos better and easier today by clicking on the link in the description to go to storyblocks.com/wisecrack, where you can learn more about Storyblocks. Now, back to the video, where we're probably going to be using a lot of great clips from Storyblocks. To understand our collective obsession, it helps to think about our current cultural moment. For that, we can take a look to a 2013 essay written by the late British philosopher and critic Mark Fisher, whose title, The Slow Cancellation of the Future, was borrowed from Italian theorist Franco Bifo Berardi. Now, Fisher argued that 21st century culture is marked by anachronism and inertia. He cites the layers of nostalgia embedded in popular music as evidence, noting that the Arctic Monkeys' 2005 hit, I Bet That You Look Good on the Dance Floor, could have easily come out in the 1980s.
I bet that you look good on the dance floor. I don't know if you're looking for romance or I don't know what you're looking for.
He offers the following thought experiment. Imagine any record released in the past couple of years being beamed back in time to, say, 1995 and played on the radio. It's hard to think that it will produce any jolt in the listeners. On the contrary, what would be likely to shock our 1995 audience would be the very recognizability of the sounds. Would music really have changed so little? Contrast this with the rapid turnover of the styles between the 1960s and the 90s. play a jungle record from 1993 to someone in 1989, and it would have sounded like something so new that it would have challenged them to rethink what music was. According to Fisher, 21st century art is gripped by a formal nostalgia, where the only supposedly new things are remakes or revivals of older styles. To see how relevant his analysis remains today, consider the current revival of early aughts fashion, which was itself dominated by vintage fashion trends. Or even simpler, just look at Hollywood, where it seems like everything is based on legacy IP manifesting as remakes, sequels, Marvel movies, or all three. Nepo babies feel like an obvious extension of Fisher's critique of contemporary culture's constant recycling of the past. Austrian academic Eva Maria Schorgenhuber explicitly connects our obsession with celebrity children to scholar Zygmunt Bauman's idea of retrotopia. Retrotopia is the political pathology of looking to an idealized past in order to cope with an uncertain future. Schorgenhuber writes, representations of celebrities' children can be seen as idealized versions of the present, which harken back to an imagined romanticized past and thus envision a sense of safety. Nepotism babies like Dennis Quaid's son Jack are low effort for consumers to take in because they're recognizable, and that recognition maybe offers us a shred of comfort in insecure times. To supplement his point, Mark Fisher contrasted 21st century culture with how things were in the 60s, 70s, and 80s in the United Kingdom. He calls this period the golden age of popular modernism. As Phoebe Braithwaite summarizes for Jacobin, popular modernist work, especially in music, straddled the experimental and the mainstream. While popular, it required work to be fully understood, doing away with past forms, following a modernist make it new. During these decades, institutions like the BBC, Channel 4, an expanded university system, and powerful local councils combined with the generous post-war welfare state and a vibrant influx of immigrants to produce a flourishing cultural scene. Specifically, the dole, i.e. government payments to those who are unemployed or underemployed, acted as a sort of de facto artist grant. It gave young people, regardless of background, access to enough money to live on, as well as lots of free culture and opportunities. This allowed many of them to dedicate themselves to their music, art, and writing, even if it wasn't at all profitable. One example is Academy Award-winning writer and director Martin McDonagh, who was able to spend a year writing 7 plays because of this system. This cultural context produced some of the best music of the 20th century. The Beatles and other British invasion bands, psychedelia, glam rock, the first heavy metal bands, punk, post-punk, and some pioneering experiments in electronic music. Fisher notes that this era also produced sci-fi serials like Sapphire and Steel, Quartermass experiments, BBC broadcasting plays, and the Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy miniseries, a clear forerunner of prestige TV drama.
What did you get on, Lawrence? It's your show, my son.
While the United States has never had a welfare state as robust as that of the post-war UK, you see something of a similar artistic boom taking place in the same decades, especially in major American cities. The rise of the suburbs and the phenomena of white flight from major urban areas made it way more affordable to live in cities. And cities are good for artistic innovation. Social scientists have confirmed what we intuitively might suspect. That constant interaction with a range of diverse people make people more creative and innovative. That's why we romanticize, say, 1970s New York City, where low rents allowed struggling artists to reign supreme over downtown Manhattan, leading to a surge of creative production. This was further facilitated by a post-war rise in public investment in art, manifesting in influential institutions like the National Endowment for the Arts, which sponsored young, provocative artists like Robert Mapplethorpe. But the creativity of the 60s, 70s, and 80s was arguably eroded in tandem across the UK and the United States. Both saw major rollbacks of social welfare under Thatcher and Reagan, while the cleaning up of cities like New York made them more appealing to real estate investors and consequently less affordable for artists. These social and economic realities had real ramifications for cultural production. We saw this especially in New York City. As novelist Edmund White wrote for the New York Times in 2015, the cultural flame that passed to New York from Europe, with all the refugees in World War II, and burned bright in the 50s with the abstract expressionists and the New York school poets, and brighter still in the late 70s, now feels as if it's been doused. Meanwhile, under Reagan's vision, universities became professionalized. less about broad liberal arts curriculums that inspired creative thinking, and more about curriculums that prepared people for jobs in industries like business and finance. If you want to know more about Reagan and destroying American colleges, check out the very big video we did on that. There will be a link in the description. Increasingly, pursuing a creative career became less attainable and more of a pipe dream for anybody without rich parents, especially rich parents who had already made a name for themselves in the arts. According to Fisher, the end of popular modernism has produced our current cultural predicament, where it feels like everything is recycled and nothing is new, where repetition and reboots have supplanted originality. In the midst of the seeming death of the cultural imagination, we find ourselves in a sort of zombie culture, primed to be dominated by the Chet Hanks and Dakota Johnsons of the world. So the problem isn't just that the children of the rich and famous are given more opportunities than others. The children of industry insiders will always have an advantage in any industry, YouTube included. I can't wait. 25 years from now, you come to Wisecrack and, little Mikey Jr.'s up here talking to you about, I don't know, there probably won't be culture in 25 years. YouTube probably won't exist. If I have a child, their life's going to be terrible probably because nothing's going well, but, I guess I could teach him how to, get off some weird tweets. If nothing else, they grow up being exposed to how it works. More annoyingly, success in the entertainment industry is significantly about who you know. Connections matter. A lot. And when say, I don't know, Tom Hanks really well because he picked you up from elementary school every day and wiped your ass as a kid, that's a significant boon, even if it isn't always, utilized to the full extent.
Big up the whole island massive. It's your boy Chetana coming straight from the Golden Globes, you know what I'm saying?
And of course, one might also say that talent isn't genetic. Even if it isn't, certain physical traits certainly are, from height, which often provides an advantage in sports, to facial features, which provide an advantage in cinematic close-ups. Notably, Hollywood babies often have faces producers already know are bankable because they look just like the faces of people who have been bankable in the past. And this isn't inherently sinister. Buster Keaton's greatness isn't somehow delegitimized by the fact that his parents were also entertainers. The problem, really, is that we now exist in a moment where only the children of the rich and famous seem to be given any real artistic opportunities. And this has three really big implications. The first, of course, is that it seems unfair. We like to think that we live in a meritocracy, where talent, and especially hard work, equates to success. But merit, it turns out, can be inherited. If you have creative or athletic dreams, you're far more likely to be able to fulfill them if you were born in the right place. Like in Ron Howard's house. Nepo babies are easy to pin our collective resentment onto because they're the most obvious reminder that, especially if you're pursuing a creative career, not everyone is starting out on an equal playing field. The second is that, frankly, it's boring. If only the children of famous people get to make art, then we only get their perspective on the world. Art and entertainment become increasingly about the privileged trying to express themselves, and maybe pandering a little bit to people whose lives they can never understand. This makes for some serious monotony. But lastly, this loss of other perspectives isn't only boring, it can leave us feeling lost. And here we can return to Fisher. Because culture has lost the ability to articulate the new, Fisher argues it has lost the ability to articulate the present. If all of our culture exists somehow in the past, we find that there is no present to grasp and articulate anymore. Art is a form of expression. It helps people speak to their experiences. It gives us a common language to understand our world. And today we live in an age of rapid societal change. But if our creative industries only make outmoded forms of art, we're missing out. Specifically, we're not fully articulating whatever new experiences people are presently having. Not having art that fully expresses their lived experiences leaves people feeling silenced and trapped. Nepotism babies are the most obvious public face of this silencing. So what people are really mad at here then isn't just that famous people's kids often also get famous. It's that the structures which currently prevail allow the already privileged to dominate in a way that in previous generations they didn't seem to, at least not to the same extent. And while nobody's saying that having famous parents should preclude a young person from succeeding in their chosen field, it's fair to say that when only Nepo babies are landing movie deals, something's seriously wrong with the system. So while it's tempting to simply aim all our resentment at individuals succeeding because of nepotism, maybe we should be focusing more of that energy on the structures and systems that make it so that they are the only ones with the space and resources to succeed in the first place. But what do you think? Are Nepo babies the perfect distillation of a rather bleak cultural moment? When famous artists all seem to come from wealth and fame, do we lose what makes art so exciting? Please sound off in the comments. Thank you so much to our own Nepo babies, our patrons. Your support means so much. And if you want to join this group and also get some great exclusive content along the way, there's a link in the description. As always, thank you so much to everyone else for your comments, for your likes, for your subscriptions. It really does mean the world to us. So thank you so much, and we'll catch you next time.